A 300-pound man strutted into Judge Judy's courtroom with the kind of smug confidence that could only come from a lifetime of intimidating people with his size, his voice, and his complete disregard for anyone who dared stand up to him. His name was Marcus Bennett, and he had no idea that in less than 2 minutes, Judge Judy would read a restraining order so damning, so absolutely devastating, that it would expose him as one of the most dangerous stalkers ever to appear on television. What Marcus didn't know was that Judge Judy had spent the previous night reviewing police reports, witness statements, and security footage that painted him not as the victim he claimed to be, but as a predator who had terrorized his ex-girlfriend for over 18 months. When Judge Judy asked him a simple question about his behavior, Marcus made the fatal mistake of looking America's toughest judge in the eye and saying, "You're too emotional to understand this case, Judge. Maybe if you calmed down and thought logically like a man, you'd see I'm the real victim here." The silence that followed was deafening. What happened next became the most viral courtroom moment of the decade. This isn't just about a restraining order. This is about a man who thought his size, his intimidation tactics, and his gaslighting could work on Judge Judy. He was about to learn that calling Judge Judy emotional was the worst mistake of his entire life. Marcus Bennett, 42 years old, unemployed, living in his mother's basement despite his age and his constant claims of being a successful entrepreneur. Despite having no job, he drove a luxury car financed by his elderly mother's retirement savings, money she had worked 40 years to save. He spent his days online, posting about how modern women don't respect real men anymore, how feminism has destroyed society, and how he was a victim of a system designed to punish masculine behavior. His social media was a toxic wasteland of misogyny, conspiracy theories, and disturbing posts about his ex-girlfriend that should have set off alarm bells for anyone paying attention. But Marcus believed every word he wrote. He genuinely saw himself as the victim in every situation, the good guy being persecuted by a world that didn't understand him. He had dated Jennifer Morrison for only 6 months, but in that time he had transformed from charming to controlling to absolutely terrifying. The relationship had started normally enough. Marcus had been attentive, romantic even, showering Jennifer with compliments and gifts. But within weeks, the red flags started appearing. He wanted to know where she was at all times. He demanded access to her phone. He became jealous of her friends, her co-workers, even her family members. When Jennifer tried to create boundaries, Marcus would flip between rage and tears, accusing her of not loving him enough, of being cruel and heartless for wanting basic privacy. When Jennifer tried to break up with him after 6 months of escalating control, Marcus refused to accept it. He told her, "Women don't get to make decisions like that. I decide when we're done, and we're not done until I say so." That statement alone should have sent Jennifer running, but Marcus had already isolated her so thoroughly that she felt trapped. When she finally found the courage to end things definitively, blocking him on everything and telling him never to contact her again, Marcus's true nature emerged in terrifying clarity. For 18 months, Marcus had followed Jennifer everywhere. He showed up at her workplace 47 times in just 3 months, forcing her employer to eventually let her go because his presence was disrupting the entire office and frightening other employees. He sent over 3,000 text messages, many threatening, some sexually explicit, others written in a fake sweet tone as if they were still dating and nothing had changed. He created fake social media accounts to harass her friends and family, telling them lies about Jennifer, claiming she was mentally unstable, that she was a liar, that she had cheated on him and destroyed his life. He slashed her tires twice, costing her hundreds of dollars she couldn't afford to replace. He left dead flowers on her doorstep with notes saying things like, "You'll regret leaving me," and, "What we had is dead because of you, just like these flowers." He sat in his car outside her apartment building for hours at a time, just watching. Security footage showed him there at 2 a.m., at 6 a.m., during the day, during the evening. He memorized her schedule better than she knew it herself. He knew when she went to the gym, when she went grocery shopping, when she visited her mother. Jennifer felt like she was living in a horror movie where the killer always knew where she was, always watching, always waiting. She couldn't sleep. She couldn't eat. She lost 20 pounds from stress. She developed anxiety so severe that she had panic attacks just hearing a car door close outside. She had tried everything. She had begged him to leave her alone. She had threatened to call the police. She had called the police, multiple times, but without a restraining order, there was little they could do unless he actually attacked her. And Marcus was smart enough to stay just on the legal side of the line, at least until today. Today's case was Jennifer Morrison versus Marcus Bennett. Jennifer was seeking a permanent restraining order and $8,500 in damages for property destruction, lost wages from having to change jobs, and therapy costs that had drained her savings account. Marcus had filed a countersuit claiming Jennifer was stalking him and that she owed him $15,000 for emotional distress and defamation of character. The audacity was breathtaking. The actual stalker was claiming to be the victim. The man who had terrorized a woman for 18 months was demanding money from her for daring to seek protection. Marcus walked to the defendant's stand with the swagger of a man who had never faced real consequences for his actions in his entire life. His expensive suit couldn't hide the arrogance radiating from every pore of his body. He believed his version of events so completely that he had actually convinced himself he was the victim in this situation. As he stood before Judge Judy, he had a slight smirk on his face, like he was about to educate everyone in the courtroom about how the world really works and how women manipulate the system to destroy good men like him. He had no idea that Judge Judy had crushed bigger, tougher, and smarter men than him before breakfast. Before we watch Marcus Bennett's complete destruction, smash that like button if you're ready to see justice served to a man who tormented an innocent woman for years. Hit subscribe because what happens next will restore your faith that consequences still exist for people like Marcus. Jennifer Morrison, 28 years old, a pediatric nurse with a spotless record and a kind heart that Marcus had exploited and destroyed. She sat in the plaintiff's chair, visibly nervous, clutching a folder full of evidence that represented 18 months of living hell. Her hands were shaking so badly that papers rattled audibly in the silent courtroom. Her voice was barely above a whisper when Judge Judy asked her to explain what had brought her here today. This was a woman who had been terrorized for 18 months, and it showed in every trembling movement, every anxious glance toward the man who had stolen her peace of mind. "Your Honor," Jennifer began, her voice cracking with emotion that was impossible to fake, "I just want my life back. I can't sleep anymore. I haven't had a full night's sleep in over a year. I had to move 3 times because he kept finding me. I changed my phone number 6 times, and somehow he always got the new one. I lost my job at the hospital because he kept showing up, sitting in the parking lot, following me inside, causing scenes that made my coworkers and patients uncomfortable. They had no choice but to let me go. I loved that job. I loved helping children. And he took that away from me." Jennifer's testimony continued, each word heavy with the weight of genuine trauma. "He waits outside my apartment building. He follows me to the grocery store. He knows my schedule better than I know it myself. I feel like I'm living in a prison, except the walls are invisible and the guard is always him, always watching, always there. I'm terrified every single day. Every car that passes my window, every knock on the door, every notification on my phone, I think it's him. He's destroyed my life, and no matter what I do, no matter how many times I tell him to stop, he won't leave me alone." Judge Judy listened intently, her expression unreadable but her eyes sharp and focused. Jennifer opened her folder with trembling hands and began showing the evidence she had meticulously collected. Text messages that were disturbing beyond belief filled page after page. One message read, "I see you're at the coffee shop on Main Street. Nice blue sweater. Looks good on you. I always loved you in blue." Another said, "You can get all the restraining orders you want. Paper can't keep me away from what's mine. You belong to me, and you always will." There were photos he had taken of her from across the street, grainy images of her leaving work, walking to her car, entering the gym, buying groceries. He had documented her life like a detective tracking a suspect. Security footage from her apartment complex showed Marcus sitting in his car for hours at a time, sometimes from midnight until dawn, just watching her building. The footage was chilling because of how patient he was, how committed to his surveillance. This wasn't impulsive behavior. This was calculated, methodical stalking by someone who truly believed he had the right to control another person's life. Judge Judy examined each piece of evidence carefully, her expression growing more serious with each page, each photo, each disturbing message. "Ms. Morrison," Judge Judy said, her voice carrying the weight of someone who had seen too many cases like this, "how many times did you explicitly tell Mr. Bennett to leave you alone?" Jennifer looked directly at the judge, grateful to finally have someone in authority taking her seriously. "Dozens of times, Your Honor. I blocked him on every platform I could think of. I sent him emails telling him we were done and to never contact me again. I told him to his face, multiple times, that I wanted nothing to do with him. I even had my brother talk to him, hoping maybe he'd listen to another man. Nothing worked. He acts like my words don't matter, like I don't have the right to decide who I want in my life." Judge Judy turned her attention to Marcus, who had been leaning back in his chair with his arms crossed, occasionally shaking his head and rolling his eyes during Jennifer's testimony. "Mr. Bennett, you've heard Ms. Morrison's testimony. You've seen the evidence she's presented. What's your version of these events?" Marcus leaned forward, and that smirk returned to his face. The smirk of a man who believed he was smarter than everyone in the room, including the judge. "Your Honor, Jennifer is a very dramatic person. She's always been prone to exaggeration because she craves attention. We had a mutual breakup. It was completely amicable. Then suddenly, out of nowhere, she starts making up all these lies about me following her and harassing her. It's absolutely ridiculous." The courtroom audience murmured with disapproval, but Marcus continued, oblivious to how badly he was presenting himself. "I have never threatened her, Your Honor. I've been nothing but respectful and caring. If I happen to be at the same coffee shop as her, that's because it's a public place in a small city. Am I supposed to hide in my house just because she might be somewhere in public? That's unreasonable and frankly, it's discriminatory against me." Judge Judy's eyes narrowed, a danger sign that experienced courtroom watchers recognized immediately. "Mr. Bennett, Ms. Morrison has provided evidence of over 3,000 text messages you sent her after she explicitly told you to stop contacting her. How exactly do you explain that level of contact?" Marcus shifted in his seat, but his arrogance remained intact. "Those were mostly just me checking in, making sure she was okay. That's what caring people do, Your Honor. You look after people you care about. I was concerned for her well-being because she seemed emotionally unstable after our breakup." Judge Judy's voice took on an edge sharp enough to cut through steel. "Caring people. Mr. Bennett, one of these messages says, and I quote, 'You'll never be rid of me. I own you. You're mine forever whether you accept it or not.' How exactly is that caring?" Marcus actually had the audacity to smile condescendingly, as if Judge Judy simply didn't understand romance. "That's taken completely out of context, Your Honor. I was being romantic. I was expressing that our connection is eternal, that what we had was special. Women say they want men who are passionate and committed, but when a man actually shows that level of devotion, suddenly he's the bad guy. It's a double standard." The courtroom gasped audibly. Even the bailiff's eyebrows shot up in disbelief. Jennifer shook her head, tears streaming down her face as she listened to Marcus twist reality into something unrecognizable. Judge Judy leaned forward, her patience clearly wearing thin. "Mr. Bennett, you showed up at Ms. Morrison's workplace 47 times in 3 months after she told you to stay away. You cost her the job she loved. You call that devotion?" Marcus's face reddened slightly, the first crack in his confident facade appearing. "Look, I was trying to talk to her like an adult. She was being childish and emotional, refusing to have a mature conversation about our relationship. I needed to make her understand that we could work things out if she would just calm down and listen to reason." Judge Judy's voice became colder. "Mr. Bennett, do you believe Ms. Morrison has the right to end a relationship without your permission?" The question hung in the air like a blade waiting to drop. Marcus paused, and everyone in the courtroom could sense that the wrong answer was coming. His mouth opened, closed, then opened again. I believe that relationships are partnerships, Your Honor. Major decisions should be made together, not unilaterally by one emotional person who isn't thinking clearly. Jennifer was having a bad day, maybe a bad week, and she made a rash decision to end things. I was trying to give her time to calm down and realize she was making a mistake. Judge Judy's expression hardened in a way that veteran viewers knew meant someone was about to be destroyed. So that's a no. You don't believe she has the right to end the relationship. Marcus's calm facade finally began to crack as he realized he was losing control of the narrative. Your Honor, with all due respect, you're clearly not understanding the full picture here. You're focusing on individual incidents without seeing the larger context of what our relationship was. Judge Judy began to respond, what I'm seeing is a pattern of, but Marcus did the unthinkable. He interrupted her. No, you don't understand. You're getting too emotional about this case. Women always side with women. You're not being objective here. The courtroom went completely silent. Dead silent. The kind of silence that happens right before an explosion. Judge Judy's face went completely still, her expression frozen in a way that made everyone in the room hold their breath. Even Marcus seemed to realize for a brief moment that he had crossed a line, but his ego and his desperate need to be right wouldn't let him stop. The hole was dug, but he kept digging deeper. Maybe if you calmed down and thought about this logically, like a man would, you'd see that I'm actually the victim here. Jennifer is manipulating you with tears and emotions, but facts don't care about feelings, Your Honor. And the fact is, she's lying about everything to get money from me and to avoid taking responsibility for her own behavior. Smash that like button right now if you think Marcus Bennett just made the biggest mistake of his life by calling Judge Judy emotional. Comment, he's done, if you know what's about to happen to this arrogant stalker, because what Judge Judy does next will become legendary in courtroom history. Marcus continued digging his grave even deeper, apparently unable to stop himself. I think you're too emotional to be objective about this case, Your Honor. Maybe you should recuse yourself and let a male judge handle this rationally, someone who won't be swayed by a crying woman with a sob story. I mean no disrespect, but this case requires logic, not feelings. The audience erupted in shocked gasps and angry murmurs. Several people actually stood up in outrage. The bailiff moved closer, not because Marcus was physically dangerous at that moment, but because the energy in the room had shifted so dramatically that protocol demanded heightened alertness. Jennifer sat frozen, unable to believe that Marcus was actually saying these things to a judge, on television, in a courtroom. Judge Judy stood up slowly, deliberately, and the entire courtroom fell into absolute silence. When she stood, everyone knew that what was coming next would be devastating. Her voice, when she finally spoke, was ice-cold and carried the weight of 40 years of legal authority. Mr. Bennett. Sit down. 2 words, but they hit like a physical force. Marcus actually flinched and sat down immediately, his bravado finally cracking under the weight of Judge Judy's presence. In 40 years of practicing law and presiding over thousands of cases, I have encountered every variety of criminal, liar, and manipulator that exists. But rarely, Mr. Bennett, have I met someone with your particular combination of delusion, arrogance, and dangerous entitlement. Judge Judy's voice was calm, controlled, and absolutely lethal. You just called me emotional because I'm a woman who dares to disagree with your twisted version of reality. You suggested I'm incapable of rational thought because of my gender. You told me to calm down when I haven't raised my voice once. You recommended a male judge handle this case because you believe men are inherently more logical than women. The courtroom erupted in spontaneous applause, but Judge Judy raised her hand for silence. Marcus looked genuinely shocked that people weren't on his side, that his logic wasn't resonating with anyone in the room. Let me be crystal clear, Mr. Bennett. I am not emotional. I am disgusted. There is a significant difference. I'm disgusted by your behavior toward Ms. Morrison. I'm disgusted by your complete lack of remorse for terrorizing an innocent woman. And I'm disgusted by your pathetic attempt to gaslight not just your victim, but this entire courtroom and everyone watching at home. Judge Judy opened a thick file folder that had been sitting on her bench. Mr. Bennett, what you don't know is that before this case, I personally reviewed your complete history with law enforcement. You have 4 previous restraining orders filed against you by 4 different women over the past 12 years. Marcus's face went completely white. His mouth opened but no sound came out. Restraining Order Number 1, Amy Chen, filed in 2011. You followed her for 14 months after a 2-month relationship ended. Restraining Order Number 2, Michelle Rodriguez, filed in 2014. You vandalized her car and sent threatening letters for 9 months. Restraining Order Number 3, Sarah Williams, filed in 2017. You showed up at her wedding and had to be forcibly removed by police. Restraining Order Number 4, Lisa Thompson, filed in 2020. You created 17 fake social media profiles to harass her family members. The courtroom exploded with gasps of horror and disgust. Jennifer was crying, but this time with relief that someone finally believed her and understood the pattern. Marcus sat frozen, unable to speak, unable to defend himself against the mountain of evidence Judge Judy had compiled. You're not a romantic, Mr. Bennett. You're not devoted. You're not caring. You are a serial stalker with a documented pattern of terrorizing women who have the audacity to reject you. And today, that pattern ends. Judge Judy's voice became even more authoritative. Mr. Bennett, I am granting Ms. Morrison a permanent restraining order with the following terms. You are to have 0 contact with Jennifer Morrison. Not in person, not by phone, not by text, not by email, not by social media, not through third parties, not by carrier pigeon. 0 contact. You must stay a minimum of 500 feet away from her at all times. That includes her home, her workplace, her gym, any location she frequents. If you violate this order even once, you will be immediately arrested and face criminal charges for felony stalking, which carries a prison sentence of up to 5 years in this state. Marcus finally found his voice, stammering desperately. Your Honor, please, this is too harsh. I can't afford. Judge Judy cut him off with surgical precision. Furthermore, you are ordered to pay Ms. Morrison $8,500 in damages for property destruction, lost wages, and therapy costs, plus an additional $5,000 for her legal fees and emotional distress. That's $13,500 total. You have 30 days to pay in full. Marcus's face transformed from white to bright red. I don't have that kind of money. My mother can't, again, Judge Judy interrupted. You could afford to drive around stalking Ms. Morrison for 18 months. You could afford to send 3,000 text messages. You can afford to pay for the damage you've caused. But Judge Judy wasn't finished. And here's the part you're really going to hate, Mr. Bennett. Due to your extensive history of violating restraining orders from 4 different women, I'm ordering you to wear a GPS ankle monitor for the next 2 years. The monitor will track your location 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If you come within 500 feet of Ms. Morrison, police will be notified immediately and you will be arrested on the spot. Additionally, you are prohibited from posting anything about Ms. Morrison on any social media platform. Any post, any comment, any mention of her name constitutes an automatic violation and automatic arrest. Finally, you are ordered to undergo a comprehensive psychological evaluation and attend mandatory therapy for a minimum of 1 year. You clearly have dangerous issues with women, boundaries, and reality itself. Marcus collapsed back in his chair, his entire body shaking. The arrogant man who had walked in believing he could manipulate everyone had been systematically destroyed in less than 10 minutes. Jennifer sobbed with relief, the weight of 18 months of terror finally lifting from her shoulders. Judge Judy looked at Jennifer with genuine compassion. Ms. Morrison, you did everything right. You documented everything, you reported everything, and you never stopped fighting for your safety. This man will never bother you again. And if he tries, he will go to prison. The courtroom gave Jennifer a standing ovation as Marcus was fitted with his ankle monitor right there in the courtroom, his humiliation complete and public. Within hours of the episode airing, Marcus Bennett's "You're too emotional" comment went viral across every social media platform. The hashtag #TooEmotionalForJudy trended worldwide. Millions of women shared their own stories of being called emotional by men who were clearly in the wrong. Marcus became the most hated man on the internet overnight. His mother kicked him out after watching the episode. He was forced to sell everything to pay Jennifer's damages. Jennifer moved to a new city, started a support group for stalking victims, and finally felt free for the first time in years. Smash that like button if you think Judge Judy delivered perfect justice to this arrogant stalker who thought he could gaslight America's toughest judge. Comment never call Judy emotional if you think Marcus got exactly what he deserved. Hit subscribe for more courtroom justice where entitled people learn that consequences are real. Marcus Bennett walked into Judge Judy's courtroom thinking his intimidation tactics would work on everyone, including the judge. He learned the hardest way possible that calling a powerful woman emotional when she's simply holding you accountable is not just disrespectful, it's career suicide, reputation suicide, and freedom suicide. In Judge Judy's courtroom, playing the victim when you're clearly the predator doesn't just fail, it guarantees your complete and total destruction. Justice served. Case closed.